Welcome to another edition of Tudor and Stuart History. My name is Mr. Barlow, and as ever, the lesson is brought to you with TEEP Learning. That's Teacher Effectiveness Enhancement Program for Accelerated Learning. Now, what are we learning about today? The Purple Learner question is, why was Charles II restored as monarch? Why are we learning about this? Well, it fits in with last lesson when we learnt about what was the New Model Army and how it won the English Civil War at the Battle of Naseby. Today's lesson is what happened next with the Protectorate and the Restoration. How are we going to learn about it? All heads and tails activity, portraits of leading characters, a card sort activity, a comparison table, and at the end, a quiz. Do it now task. Watch the Horrible History song. What impression do you get of Charles II? Record 2 or more adjectives, that's describing words to you and me, and follow the link below, and the video lasts for about 2 minutes. The higher order thinking skills we'll be losing today on the left are reasons, connections, and importance. And on the right, purple, I can define the key words. Silver, I can explain one or more reasons for the restoration. And bronze, I can analyse the importance of the restoration. Task 1, heads and tails. Match with arrows the key words to their correct definitions. Allow 2 minutes to do this activity. Your table should look something like this. Protectorate means name of government of 1653 to 1658, led by the Lord Protector, Oliver Cromwell. It means help from something more powerful. Republic is a system of government with rule by representatives of the people, not by monarchy. Restoration means the bringing back of the monarch. Restoration period is the return of Charles II in 1660. And finally, monarchy, the form of government headed by a king or queen. Let's meet the characters. Top left, Oliver Cromwell, Lord Protector, 1655 to 58. Bottom left was his successor, his son, Richard Cromwell, the second Lord Protector, but he couldn't manage Parliament or the New Model Army. Top right is General Monk, who marched his New Model Army down from Scotland and paved the way for the restoration of Charles II in 1660. Bottom right is General Lambert and Charles Fleetwood, who was Cromwell's son-in-law. They tried to keep the Republic together, but their army deserted as they went out north to face General Monk's New Model Army. Here we have the Restoration Royal Court. Charles II, known as the Merry Monarch, he reigned from 1660 to 1685. He had a lot of love to give, but unfortunately very little of it was directed towards his wife, and they had no children, Catherine de Braganza, the Queen, and Charles, which meant that Charles's Catholic brother, James, was to succeed him. You see top right is James II, and it was a major problem in those days that he was a Catholic. Bottom right is Nell Gwyn, an actress and most famous of Charles's mistresses. Charles had 14 children with his mistresses. And top is part of the Merry Gang, that's Earl of Rochester, who was both a poet and a pleasure seeker, called a libertine. Newsflash, the Lord Protector is dead. Long live the... Oh, wait a minute. Where is he? 1658, Oliver Cromwell dies. His son takes over but can't manage either the army or the parliament. 1659, the army generals removed Richard Cromwell from office, and General Monk moves down south from Scotland to restore order and paves the way for the restoration. Charles II issues the Declaration of Breda, which says he's willing to work with Parliament and he won't seek revenge on those who fought for Parliament. And the new Parliament issues a decree, that's an order of restoration, bringing back the monarchy in 1660. Task 2. Why was there a restoration? Connect the reasons in blue to the themes with the multicolours using arrows or a key. One reason may connect to more than one theme. Allow 10 minutes to conduct this activity. Life under the Protectorate. The Protectorate was a military rule by the New Model Army. The country was peaceful, and a written constitution united England, Scotland and Wales and Ireland under a single system of government for the first time. England became internationally respected as the New Model Army was unleashed onto the continent by defeating the Dutch and the Spanish. England had more money, with more manufacturing and trade being encouraged under the Protectorate, and Cromwell encouraged Jews to return to England after 350 years of exile to help boost the economy. The most powerful group were the Puritans, who wanted people to live a simple life and wear plain clothes. Puritans believed you had to work hard if you wanted to go to heaven when you died, and frowned upon pleasures and entertainments. Taverns for drinking beer were closed, theatres were shut, sports like football were banned, and cockfighting and bear baiting were also stopped. Christmas Day celebrations were banned, and you were supposed to fast, that means not eat on Christmas Day, and soldiers would come round to anyone who was cooking turkey or had mince pies and would take them away. Puritans hated swearing, and you could be fined for saying as little as "Lord have mercy." Life was even more controlled when England was divided into 11 areas run by the major generals of the New Model Army. However, the Protectorate was also a golden age of new ideas. We have the diggers, who spread across southern England, who claimed the land for everyone. Cromwell and the army were tolerant of the diggers, but the landowners drove them off. The Fifth Monarchists believed Christ was going to return and England needed to be more godly, wanting the end of hanging and for thieves to work for those they had stolen from. Ranters denied the authority of churches and Bibles, believing God is in all living creatures. They often walked around naked. The Levellers were the most influential, with a lot of support in the army. They wanted all men over 21 to vote for regular parliaments and the end of imprisonment for debt and only execution for murder. They wanted the end of customs taxes and freedom of worship with no tithes, that's church taxes. The Levellers mutinied in the army, and Cromwell had the ringleaders shot. Their leader, Colonel Lilburne, was imprisoned and the army given its back pay. The movement faded away. Task 3. Which of these beliefs are accepted today? Task 4. Which of these beliefs are not accepted today? Allow 10 minutes to review the evidence and write your responses. Life in the Restoration. When Charles II was restored after 10 years in exile, people lined the streets of London celebrating his return. Charles II was given all the powers of his father. He brought back the Church of England with its bishops, declared all the laws passed between 1649 and 1660 illegal, but he did work with Parliament more than his father. London by this time had a population of nearly 500,000. Tall timber houses were packed in, jutting across the narrow streets, with the top floors almost touching. London was an important port, with trading ships arriving from as far as the West Indies and Africa. London was also a centre of industry, making soap, dyes and beer. In some ways, it was little changed from medieval times, with its dirty, narrow streets paved with cobblestones. During the day, the streets were bustled with activities of sellers and tradesmen. At night, with no streetlights, dangers lurked from cut purses, and people would often hire a link boy to light their way home. When King Charles returned, the theatres reopened. New ones were built with roofs. There was now painted scenery and candles to light it, and women took over female parts from boys. Hundreds of alehouses had no closing times, and for 1 pence you could buy a black coffee in the new coffee houses with newspapers to read and discuss. Tea was another new drink at this time. The Royal Society was founded in 1660 to further science, and Isaac Newton explained the laws of gravity. We know a lot about this Restoration period from Samuel Pepys's diary, who wrote about his experiences in London. Charles wasn't so forgiving to those he held responsible for executing his father. Although he did not pursue those who fought against him, he did pursue the regicides. That's those who signed his father's death warrant. Charles II gave 24 posthumous, that means they'd already died, executions, including Cromwell, where their remains were dug up and their heads were displayed on spikes at Westminster Hall. Those who were alive, several were hanged and drawn and quartered, and others imprisoned for life. 21 of the regicides fled England and were hunted by government agents, and most captured or killed. Generals Whaley and Gough escaped capture and lived on the run in North America. Edmund Ludlow lived the longest and died in Switzerland in 1692. There were several disasters of the Restoration period. The first and foremost was the Great Plague of 1665. The plague was a common disease. This 1665 plague was probably bubonic, with its black spots called buboes. According to modern scientists, it was spread by fleas living on black rats. 80,000 died. London fell silent. The Great Fire of London in 1666, the year after the Great Plague, was started in a baker's shop in Pudding Lane. The fire spread rapidly through the wooden city, destroying 13,000 houses, 88 churches, and left 100,000 homeless. Architect Sir Christopher Wren was employed by Charles II to build London with wider, straighter streets in brick or stone. Wren built St Paul's Cathedral. For the first time, insurance companies started in business. Task 5. Compare 3 or more features of life under the Protectorate and the Restoration in the table below. Task 6. Which period do you think was better? Explain your reasons. Allow 10 minutes for you to complete this activity by looking back over the previous slides on the Protectorate and the Restoration. And finally, Task 6. The quiz for why was Charles II restored as monarch? Tick as appropriate from the words that are below the question. The quiz answers as follows are: question number 1. What is the system of government without monarchs called? Republic. Question number 2. What was Cromwell's government called? The Protectorate. Question number 3. What is Charles II's return as monarch called? The Restoration. Question number 4. Which general helped Charles II's restoration? General Monk. Question number 5. What was Charles II known as? The Merry Monarch. Question number 6. Who wrote a diary telling us about London life? Samuel Pepys. Question number 7. Which scientist explained laws of gravity? It was Isaac Newton. And question number 8. Which of the following did not happen during Charles II's reign? It was the English Civil War. Thank you very much for listening.